Order online at picassospizza.net.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to this Trainwreck Sports podcast where we are here to pay the bills. It is not even 24 hours after another Bills loss in prime time, and I've got the whole crew with me tonight. Mike Bunt back again, Mike Partham. We got AJ Sapolsky, and we got Carson Hayek here as the Bills fell last night to the Atlanta Falcons on Monday night, 24-14. We had a raucous post-game show last night. Went for a couple hours. Me, Mike, and AJ were on there. My brother Alex was on there. So I want to start tonight with Carson and then go to Parthy. Carson, you said right before the show that you tried not to think about immediately after the loss. You tried to do anything you could not to think about this game. So have you thought about it since then? What were your reactions right after the game ended, and what are you feeling right now, sitting here 24 hours later?
Well, for starters, I think this is a gut punch, a loss like this. But there's a lot of takeaways, I think, from it. For starters, my number one thing is the Bills somehow, some way, had every opportunity to win this football game, and they blew it. They blew it through and through. It just wasn't enough, not even close to enough. It seemed every time Josh went back to pass, it was a hopeless cause. It felt like we were almost like Army in a football game or one of the military schools who are just known for the triple option. And when they try to throw the football, everything goes to hell. Because that's kind of what happened. Josh was pressured on 53% of his dropbacks. You're not going to win too many games with that. Atlanta was the highest rating blitz team in the NFL. You had to expect that coming into today, or coming into last night. I bet they did as well. That's something that you just don't skip over in the scouting report. Talking about that through the week. It was probably a huge emphasis when it came to the offensive line. I thought the offensive line, they struggled through and through. And this is, to me, in 3 weeks in a row now where I've been a little worrisome of the offensive line. I think this is still the strength of their group with all five guys returning. And they're all five really quality starters. But 53% is not going to cut it. Allen's been sacked 12 times this season already. That's almost as much as last year. He was sacked 14 times all of last season. To me, I think that's a little worrisome because now there's tendency breakers in every asset of the game, whether that's, you could talk offense, defense, adjustments, everything like that. But to me, it seems a team or two has figured out, hey, there's a rule the Bills have, maybe when it comes to switching, when it comes to stunts, ETs, you name it, right? I think a few teams kind of figured out there's a little something on film that might be popping out, along with the fact that some of this goes on Josh. I think a lot of people forget that the quarterback calls the protection. The quarterback and the center have a huge say, great relationship. They're the two guys every play that are guaranteed to touch the football, right? So this was a number one thing. Even in high school when I played, they called, hey, we're going half slide right, half slide left. There was a numerous plays where I thought Josh could have done a better job calling out the protection. Then again, give Atlanta a ton of praise because Ulbrich, who Josh has a history of dominating against, he turned it up last night. Sent in the house. This guy's blitzes paid off phenomenally. Fourth down and 2 when Allen's pass came a little short to Ty Johnson. They missed on the slide there. Spencer Brown should have kicked out on the slot corner blitz. He goes inside because the protection says for him to go inside. In that case, gets outside to his left. Allen tries to flick it because he just doesn't have enough time to let it go. But to me, my number one takeaway on top of the line is, hey, the wide receivers, we're really having an issue with this. I get they're shorthanded. It would have been great to have Kincaid, especially along with Palmer for a full game. But, man, the depth was rough. I thought Khalil Shakir, I was really hoping he'd get the football a little bit more. It's clear that he was the only guy Josh really had faith in last night. Keon Coleman one-on-one when it came to A.J. Terrell. I love Keon, but Mike, it was the equivalent of having Mike Bunt out there against A.J. Terrell. Not the same stuff. That's no slight to you, Bunt, but hey, it was rough. Defensively, though, and I've been kind of going on here, but defensively, I was really, really impressed with how they played in the second half. It seemed like every single time Atlanta had the football in that first half, like we were on our heels, we were against the ropes. They should have scored a touchdown there. The final few seconds, we get a lucky play. Shout out Taylor Rapp for making a phenomenal effort. Effort is the only thing I can give them though. In that first half, it was rough. Second half, they came out firing on all cylinders. They hold to Atlanta to I think just over 100 yards total. Incredible effort. They kept the Bills in it, and by the end of the game, it was kind of like the defense didn't even lose us this thing. It was the offense blowing opportunities. The team even had hope, I guess you could say as well, with a lucky blocked field goal. Last time that happened was Shaq Lawson against Tampa Bay on Thursday Night Football years ago. Like that is a bounce that goes your way, and then to add on to it, Atlanta was dumb enough to throw the football with 2.5 minutes left, throws it right at Shaq Thompson, and it goes right through his hands. It just was a thing where it's like, damn, man, like we can't do anything right. The opening play, could you imagine if they call Greg Rousseau not offsides there and Buffalo ends up with the football on the very first play on a fumble? I think the game's completely different. Sure, Atlanta's going to have some success on offense still. I think that's a fair point. But if we end up with the football on a fumble after the first play, also shout out ESPN for not showing us a single replay on whether or not Greg was offsides or not. Then you have Bosa, who gets to the quarterback. I believe it was on a sack in the second quarter, offsides again. And then the very next play, Bijan takes it 81 yards to the house on an incredible run. Cole Bishop misses a tackle. The gap integrity McDermott called out specifically was horrible on that play. Just everything about it. It seemed like the Bills have been beating themselves lately. The turnovers since the New Orleans game, the protection is broken down. Defensively, they've fallen apart a little bit. It's been rough. They've beaten themselves. Nothing irritates me, and I'm sure the coaching staff more than dumb mental mistakes pre-snap, penalties like false starts, legal formations. Those are just all mental. And then defensively, the ball is right across from you. There's no excuse for that. So it's overall, it's a difficult loss. I think some people do have to just relax a little bit, take a breath. Again, we are 4-2. This is time after time. It seems like in the McDermott era, we get out of September and all of a sudden the wheels start to spin and the Bills are having a difficult time playing to the level that they should be. But I think this year could be a little bit different. I'm sure we'll jump into it later. I'll save those thoughts for now. But right now, I'm still cautiously optimistic for the rest of the way here.
I'm not cautiously optimistic. I'm cautiously pessimistic. Is that a term that we can use around here?
Yeah.
Well, regardless of what we are, we're pissed off here.
Oh, we're pissed off, man. There's no doubt about it. Pissed off to the highest of pistivity.
I think this qualifies for a highest of pistivity moment, don't you guys?
Absolutely.
I'm looking at James Cook here. He had 5.1 yards per carry. Didn't look like they were getting him much involved in the game until the start of the second half. And yet, their usage of him is just almost criminal. His snap count, 52.6%. That's his second lowest of the season. Ironically, the lowest of the season was against the Jets when we blew them out. But he wasn't on the field for any of these third or fourth down plays. They keep saying, well, he's not good at pass protection, so put him out wide. You're missing Josh Palmer. You're missing Kincaid. You're missing most of your serviceable offensive weapons. Use him as a weapon. Use him as a pass catching running back, and don't have him in the backfield for pass blocking. His last touch in this game came with 11:45 to go in the fourth quarter. With so many injuries on offense, especially to key players, you cannot keep that man on the sideline, especially after what you paid him in the offseason and after how much he's paid off during the season thus far. Josh Palmer, for his effect, he's had the only 20-yard air yards catch all season. That came when the very first drive of this game. He's also leading the team in yards on passes of 10-plus air yards. So whatever separation he may be getting at times or not, and whatever little usage he's been getting at times or not for whatever reason, he is effective if you want to actually target him once in a while. Meanwhile, Keon Coleman, 100 yards in his first game against the Ravens, has 125 yards total in his last 5 games, I think, since week 1. So we're just going to reignite the whole, not just Keon versus Xavier Worthy debate. We're going to invoke Ladd McConkey's name in there too, because at that time when he was picked, his drafting profile was he's a contested catch receiver. And of course, everybody's saying, oh, that's maybe what the Bills need. Oh, Josh Allen likes him. Let me be perfectly frank. I love Josh Allen. He's the great quarterback. He's the reason we're in this. He's not the general manager. He may not know what he really needs. He may like the idea of just throwing it up to a guy and letting him go get it, maybe that's a little bit easier for a quarterback, and you can put the onus on the wide receiver. But for me, I want him to read downfield and see who's getting open and who's getting separation. And of course, like I said, we're without Palmer for most of this game, and we're without Kincaid, who's having a great rebound year after last year. But I hate to keep going to the receiver route. You know who doesn't need to keep going to the receiver argument? The freaking Falcons, because they had a guy, Drake London, go for 158 yards. And Bijan Robin contributed 68 more receiving yards as a running back. Use your running back as a receiver. Why not? He had 100. Of course, he had the big 81-yard run and 170 yards total. These two guys, keep in mind, gentlemen, had 396 yards of 443 total yards of offense. That was 89% of their offense. That is not everybody eats. That is feed it to your playmakers. I came up with an alternative slogan. Let's take everybody eats and throw it in the garbage. You know what this team should do? Earn your meals. All right. You want to eat. You got to do the chores before you get to the dinner table. How about that?
I love that.
Oh yeah.
Earn your meals. Earn your meals. That's
starves,
a good one.
Clip that. Hashtag that.
There we go. Yeah, I'm gonna marking that down right now. Part of the earn your meals. AJ, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling the same. Quite frankly, nothing really has changed. I listened to the McDermott presser this afternoon. Uninspiring. Same thing we've heard. Joe Brady, same thing, and Bobby Babich as well. I liked what I heard actually from Bobby Babich in terms of knowing that they've had moments defensively, like in games where they've done well, right? The second half last night, for example, but just coming out faster. And he feels like they did that well against New England. But I think just, those little things, the little penalties like Rousseau lining up offside was obviously costly. And that would have, changed the game. The Trey White DPI that extended that drive, that results in a touchdown. That's another big call, which I thought was BS at the time. And that really changed the game because they go down on that drive and score to take a 7-point lead. So I feel that pretty much the same. And we're going to go back to, and Brady and McDermott and Babich, they all talked about it. We've been here before. We're 4-2. Last year we were 3-2, and look what happened. And, and I think, and Mike said this to me about other things, like with injuries, like, well, just because it's happened in the past doesn't mean it's going to happen with injuries and other things like that, with that nature. And the thing with me is, like, you can believe that they're going to figure this out because they've done it in the past, but that does not guarantee that they are going to figure out because they've done it in the past. So for me, this defense is worse than it ever was. The offensive line, I think Carson already said it, but they allowed, let me see here real quick, 18 pressures, a 52.9% pressure rate, and 4 sacks. In the offense, their EPA per play per pass was negative, or per play in total, was negative 0.12. Their EPA per pass was negative 0.24, and their success rate was 46.3%. So the analytics not in favor of the pass game. The run game was fine. They just didn't, do it well enough. So overall, I'm worried. Again, the Patriots with their schedule, don't even look at it if you're a Bills fan right now, because there's like 2 or 3 games where I think they can really be challenged, and they have like the Titans, the Browns, the Jets. So they have a pretty, easy schedule like us. I hope they turn it around, but if history does repeat itself and they do turn it around, that, what that means, it's going to be another loss in the divisional round. So it really, whatever way you look at it, like, that's, if history's going to repeat itself, that's if you follow that mindset of, well, the same thing's going to happen. They're going to get back, they're going to bounce out of it, and they're going to make the playoffs and win the division. Well, then what's happened along with that? So that's where I think that, like, you got to look at this year and what's happened. You can still believe it, but you got to put the past out the window.
Damn. AJ, like, Mr. like, depressing right now. That's
all right. You got to put the past out the window. Like, I don't care. Like, I still believe, like, they're going to be a good team and be in it down the stretch. But to think, because they've done it in years past, I think this team's a lot different. And there's a lot.
Sound like Tage Thompson right now.
That's
perfect. Exactly.
That's perfectly fair. Like, every year is its own unique season, and it's stupid to say, well, because they did this like 2 years ago, that it's going to happen again. Like, it's a different team, it's a different experience, and there's different things that they have gone through. But the reason you look to the past is because they've shown they can rebound, that they can make the adjustments, and that they don't let these things impact them. So you're not saying that it's guaranteed to happen. You're saying they have a track record of being able to respond to adversity and battle through it. And that's more of what the point is when people are saying that. I don't feel bad at all right now, really. I'm not going to say I'm as confident about this team as I did 24 hours ago. But
Mike, hold up. Last night, you literally said this on the show too. You're like, "This is great because you guys get my unfiltered negative reactions before I have 24 hours to put a positive spin."
Yeah, Mike.
And then Mike comes back 21 hours later. And he's like,
we were talking about Drew Gear over at the Rock Pile Report. This is why he doesn't do live streams the day after a game. He gives himself 24 hours to calm down, to come down off his hangover or whatever he has. Go ahead.
So, like last night, what were we talking about? We were saying there's a lot of problems. And I started thinking about how they're going to handle some of the problems and how I think they can fix some of the problems. And then I also went through the conference and some of the things that will face them going forward. And I do think this is probably the weakest Bills team on paper that they've had since Josh Allen became elite Josh Allen. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. The AFC is trash right now. Like, the AFC sucks. So I really don't have a reason to give up on this team when I don't think any other team in the conference has given me a reason to believe they're incredible. Like you could say this, like the last 4 or 5 years, the Bills might have been twice the team that they were, but you knew they had to get past Kansas City or Baltimore or Cincinnati. And even though the Bills might have been a way better team, the path was going to be difficult. I still think the path is pretty weak. We just did our power rankings today. I think you can make a legitimate argument that 6 of the top 8 teams in the NFL are in the NFC right now. And yes, the Colts look great. We're 6 games into the year. Like, we don't know if what the Colts are doing is sustainable or what they're going to do when they face some adversity. Yes, the Patriots are 4-2 and their schedule looks really easy. But some of these games that we're saying are easy for the Patriots, they might not be easy for the Patriots. Like, we can't just assume that the Patriots are going to win every single easy game that they end up playing. Like, what, AJ, you brought up some of their competition. Like, they have a game against the Falcons in 3 weeks. That could be lost. They then play the Bucs the next week. That could be a loss. They play a team like the Ravens when Lamar's going to be back. They're going to play the Bills again. Games against the Giants, who just took down the Eagles. Like, these are not gimmies. The Patriots just went on the road, had a tough game against New Orleans, which is one of the worst teams in the league. And yes, I know the Bills also struggled against New Orleans, but I don't think it's time to be anointing New England in any matter. Here's the thing. The Bills had played a horrible game on both sides of the ball. Their defense had one of the worst starts to a game that we have ever seen in the Sean McDermott era. But you want to know a reason why to be encouraged? Despite all of the injuries, despite everything that was going against them, that defense didn't fold. In the second half, they held the Falcons to 3 points and gave their offense every opportunity to win the game. To me, that shows that they continued fighting even when they were in a bad situation. That's a positive sign. And I look at all the injuries. They played with 3 defensive linemen yesterday. One of them is a practice squatter, and the other one was a 4th-round pick rookie. And the other one was the one on a snap count who missed the last 4 games. So less than desirable situation with the defensive tackles. They're missing their 2 starting linebackers for this game. And when you count the second half, Bernard was out. And then you see, like, the safety situation is just a complete joke. But I'll turn it and I'll spin it on you guys for a couple things on the defense. Last night I was like, how do you fix this defense? And I didn't have the answers. I didn't know the snap counts and the different things like that. I think Bills fans should be a little concerned that the defense got a lot better when Terrell Bernard got off the field. We've been saying the metrics don't point a positive picture for him, that things don't point a positive picture for him. Yeah, he makes splash plays. That defense got way better after Bernard got off the field. And you know when they also got way better? when Jordan Poyer got on the field, and you saw them communicate a little bit better in certain aspects. I think there's two easily identifiable issues on this Bills team right now. It's linebacker, it's safety. This is what I do to fix this defense. I am acquiring a safety in the worst way before the trade deadline, a starting caliber safety. That's the number one need on this team. And I'll be honest, at this point, Poyer is probably an upgrade on Cole Bishop and Taylor Rapp. I'm replacing both those safeties midseason. Like, they become backups to me if they don't show anything in the next couple weeks. Cole Bishop is like the 97th ranked safety in PFF grades, and Taylor Rapp is like a bottom 5 safety in the NFL. I don't think Jordan Poyer can be worse than them, to be honest with you. I think Jordan Poyer just knowing how to communicate with other players on the defense makes him a better player than those two right off the bat. Then you spend some trade assets or capital to get another safety that is at least competent, and then you solve at least that part of the defense. Here's the other part. I think Shaq Thompson needs to be a starting linebacker on this team going forward. I don't care about Milano or Bernard when they come back. One of them is now your backup linebacker because they are not getting it done. And I don't think they're going to make Milano. I don't think they'll make Bernard a backup linebacker, which means that when Milano is healthy again, I want him as a backup. Unless you go to a 4-3 and you start switching things up, Milano is not better than Shaq Thompson right now. Dorian Williams is flawed. And know another thing I want to see? I want, when Maxwell Harrison gets this ramp-up period, I want him to get shots on the field in late November and December at getting reps. Maybe not starting, but I want to see, can he handle his own in big moments? Because this is how the defense changes everything up. You flip the safeties. You have Shaq Thompson as one of your starting linebackers, and then you pair him with, I don't care, Milano, Bernard, whatever you have to do. And then you give Hairston some reps. Then you bring Hoyt back into the picture. And let's be real. We thought Ogunjobi might be cut before the season. Right now, they need it. Like, they desperately need him. So you think about it. The 6-game suspensions are over now. You have 2 weeks before your next game. You get Hoyt, Ogunjobi. You get Shaq Thompson as a starting linebacker. You pair him with Milano or Bernard. And then you flip your 2 safeties and you give Hairston a chance to ramp up. You're talking about a potential 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 player shift on your defense midseason. Now, how realistic is all of that? Probably not entirely realistic, but people are saying, how can this defense get better? By basically saying to the players that are playing awful right now, okay, we'll move on from you. Yeah. That's how they get better. And so I actually do think some of that stuff can help out. And then offensively, quick, this is what I'll say. I have been talking up Josh Palmer the entire offseason, and maybe to an unrealistic standard. I have been talking shit about Elijah Moore all offseason to the most realistic standard possible. Elijah Moore had an opportunity last night to enter a game and show that he was deserving of all the praise Bills Mafia gave him this offseason. And know what he did? He showed everything that I talked about during training camp, the preseason, and the start of the regular season. He cannot play. Like, that guy is a 4th, 5th string receiver in the NFL who only put up stats because he was in a horrible situation in Cleveland where they had to rely on him, and that's why he put up numbers. Number 2, Josh Palmer just showed you a little bit of how he impacts a game even when he's not making plays. He might not be a high-volume, high-yardage statistical receiver, but once he left that game, that Bills offense went from being somewhat efficient and passing the ball with some success to having zero answers at all. Once Palmer left that game, there was only one thing the Bills could do, and it's run the ball. And let's be real, that allowed the Falcons to do everything they wanted to so successfully because the Bills don't have a guy man-to-man in the receiver room that can exploit anyone else. Keon Coleman can't separate. So what this essentially did was it allowed the Falcons to blitz relentlessly, and Josh had no options to throw to. Josh Palmer's healthy. That game is completely different. Completely different. Dalton Kincaid healthy. That game is completely different. So how do they fix their offense? One, they need to be a little bit healthier. They need Palmer back. And I'll be real, at this point, Gabe Davis is an improvement over Samuel and Elijah Moore. Like, this might sound crazy. Like, Gabe Davis, like, if he is healthy, like, at some point, he should be wide receiver 4, like, the moment he's good enough to play. Because he is better than both Curtis Samuel and Elijah Moore. And what you do in that moment is, assuming Palmer's healthy, assuming Gabe Davis is healthy, you suddenly have 2 intermediate guys that have some down the field ability to get open while giving Josh the underneath guys like Shakir and Kincaid. And then you can continue to run the ball because they're running the ball effectively, even in heavy boxes. There is things that they can fix. And these are going to be my last points. I had a tweet today about it. 3 things can be simultaneously true at the same time. And this is what I'm going to say. The receivers don't separate enough, and the offensive line didn't block well enough. Number 2, Joe Brady needs to scheme up better passing game concepts. And number 3, Josh Allen was pressing and isn't playing to his standard. I think all 3 of those have been true in recent weeks. They need to go back to the drawing board. They need to figure some things out. They have enough talent to turn this around. They just have to go back to the basics, and they need get a little bit healthy. And Joe Brady has to realize, while we are run first team, we have to get concepts downfield to at least have defenses hold us accountable. Because if they don't get some of that in there, teams are going to continue to blitz with no worries, and the Bills are going to be screwed.
I mean, there were a lot. Go ahead, Parthy.
I was seeing like 8 people, at least 9 man in the box, and it somehow still Cook was able to get 5.1 yards per carry on the limited number of runs he had in there. One other guy we should mention, shout out for the defense that's playing well along with Shaq Thompson, is Deion Walker. He had a pass deflection, 4 tackles for loss. He's now tied for 4th in the NFL in tackles for loss with 7. And who is it? Shaq Thompson almost had that pick 6. He had 10 total tackles, 5 solo, a tackle for loss, and that I don't know if that counts as a pass deflection when he couldn't haul in the interception. One thing I want to do here, because I have my favorite bits here. We got to get some of these defensive guys to the sideline, because everybody out there is just grab.
Everybody grab it out there. Nobody touch it. Just grab it, everybody. Grab. Nobody touch it.
So I think at one point there may be more than this. There might have been at least 17 missed tackles total by the Bills in totality. Someone said it was that much at some point. It might be more than that. Obviously, we mentioned Cole Bishop on the Bijan 81-yard run. I think one 22-yard run early on. There might have been at least 3 different guys that had a shot at Bijan and missed him. And I think Taylor Rapp might have missed tackles on 2 consecutive runs. So whoever we get on this defense, whoever we sit down and bring in, they just got to, the fundamentals of the basics have got to be wrapping up. I won't go into over-officious people, because there were certain things. There was the overturned catch on Elijah Moore that really should have been a catch, especially compared to the one that Kincaid had over the weekend. There was a phantom defensive pass interference on Trey. There was no face mask on Keon called on the 3rd down late in the game, but the officials were by far and away like the 10th or 11th reason, maybe not even top 10, that the Bills lost this game as it was. Not much more for me to go through here.
And the calls, we were all in the group chat upset about the calls in the first half. It did seem to even out a little bit in the second half. They started calling a little bit more of those holdings and illegal contacts on the Falcons in those drives. So yeah, this team without the penalties, but messed up enough. But when you have as many penalties as they've had, I think it's like, I don't know, what is it? They're averaging 10 penalties a game in the last 3 games, and you lose the turnover battle, you're going to lose a lot of football games. Like, it's almost as simple as that. Like, if this team, how many times have we said, and since I've been doing this podcast, have said the Buffalo Bills are their own worst enemy. They beat themselves more than anybody. The last 2 weeks was them fighting themselves on that field for 120 straight minutes of football, as much as anything else. Like, they had especially yesterday, offensively, specifically, every opportunity to take control back of that game and win it going away, and then we would have been having a happy podcast, and we would have went to sleep at a normal time, happy, woke up in a good mood today on a Tuesday morning, everything that way. They've gotten in their way so much. And I do want to say about the offense and Brady and what philosophically what we're looking at here, because my biggest concern, if there's a reason for me to panic today, it is that we are now almost 2 years into the Joe Brady as offensive coordinator experiment. And I think the philosophy went too far. Like, Sean McDermott was always talking about, we need a balanced offense. We need a complementary offense. We need to have the run game to balance out the pass game. Well, now they don't have the pass game. Like, they put so much emphasis, so much of their resources into building up this run game into a monster, and it's worked. But it abandoned the pass too much and didn't pay attention enough to the pass game. Where Keon Coleman last night, I think we can. Bud didn't even mention him when he was talking about the receivers who can help solve the issue that year. And I think that's for a reason, because we've all lost a lot of faith in Keon. I know Carson's lost a lot of faith in Keon, and I'm going to give him a second to talk about it if he wants to. But Keon, last night, you want to talk about snap counts and things that were eye-opening seeing this morning. 86% of the snaps, I think we mentioned that already. He was out there 49 of 57 offensive snaps. And he was basically invisible for it. But what is he out there for in those snaps? It's to help the run game as much as anything, right? Like, Keon is a great blocker. That's one of the big reasons they brought him in. It's the reason they run the 2 tight ends and even 3 tight end sets a lot this year, is because of how much they want to emphasize the run game and use those resources on, a first round resource on Kincaid, who can be a pass catcher and a blocker, keeping Knox around to be a inline blocker, having Jackson Hawes on this roster. But when you have you have the lack of talent on the outside, and I just don't know if there's a proof that Joe Brady can scheme up a competent passing game in the NFL. When has he ever shown it? Like, the only time in his career he schemed up a competent passing game, he had Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Justin Jefferson on a college team. Like, it really hasn't been. The numbers have dipped immediately, and the efficiency's there. Don't get me wrong, and that is what the focus was. We're going to be more balanced, and we're going to make Josh more efficient. We're going to turn into an efficiency monster. And last year it worked. It got Josh to an MVP. They obviously had as much success, point differential offensively, all these things, right? But it just feels like we're in another year of this. Teams saw everything over the summer last year as they're game planning for the Bills coming into the year, defending them differently. They're not running. You're not seeing as much. And you just mentioned it, Parthy. You're not seeing as much too high shell over the Bills or anything like that. Last night, there was a 3rd and 10. It was the 3rd and 10 where Josh was looking for Elijah Moore, and they just ended up in the middle of nowhere. And they had almost 10 guys in the box at the start at the snap. On 3rd and 10, bro, in your own territory. Like, that is inexcusable to be defended like that as a team with Josh Allen as your quarterback. And I just don't know. I don't want to just sit here and complain about the receivers. So I'm trying to find other things. And I just haven't seen. And I think I said this on this show a couple weeks ago, even before these issues really started cropping up. The inventiveness and the creativity in the passing game and the downfield schemes that we've seen so far, it doesn't show up to me when I watch this team. And it seems to be last night really came to a roost. They just don't have the guys to go out there and win early enough, and they don't have the concepts down the field to open things up without guys that can win. But Carson, I do want to hear about you.
I just want to mention, we've been saying this all the whole time from the very beginning, even going back to last year, as much success they've had as scoring on offense. Now they've had this national game where they just completely crapped the bed, and we've got national guys on ESPN and commentators and play-by-play guys saying no one's getting open no field, no one's separating, etc. So this is exposed for basically, if they're not already seeing it on game film, for all the teams in the NFL and our future opponents to see. But go ahead, Carson.
Yeah, to address Jake's point, just offensively, it was rough just on the outside. Keon, I still have a lot of faith in him. I think he's a guy who's going to be a rotational player in the NFL for a long time. I just don't think he's going to turn out to what a lot of people wanted to. And then I've been saying this since week 1 after he put up a nice box score stat line against the Ravens. Everyone's like, oh, he's going to break out this year. And he's going to take that next step over 1,000 yards. I did not see that against the Ravens. I thought a few plays went his way. He made a few nice contested catches, but with him, He's the definition of a 50-50 ball receiver. You're going to live and die by that, but you can't be living and dying by that when you have a bunch of your receivers out and you have 4 wide receivers that are healthy during the game. And that to me was just, it was tough. And it got to a point where Josh would just kind of stop targeting him. Like there was a point where Terrell was literally locking him down. It got to the point where he'd rather go to a guy like Tyrell Shavers, who I like Tyrell. I think he's a good dude, another good rotational piece, but he's going to be your wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6. Last night, I actually thought like it would be nice to have Gabe Davis out on the field. At least he's somebody that's proven before that, hey, he has the history of having success in the NFL. It was just a lot of unprovens last night. Shakir was kind of your guy, but Atlanta knew that as well, so they're going to take him away, and getting over the middle of the field is difficult as well, especially when they're blitzing a lot from a lot of different looks, and he's kind of your safety blanket, and they got the backer there as well. So that's difficult with Khalil. I thought Khalil made plays when he needed to. I would have liked to see him make a few more plays. Elijah Moore, we've been saying this for a bit now. It's just he's not really the guy. I will say though, it would have been, if there was ever a game to have Curtis Samuel, last night would have been a great time for him because he's a guy who can really get open. He excels against man coverage, very athletic guy, great speed, can do some stuff after the catch, and also a guy who can use in the gadget game, and they didn't really have a guy like that. It was Elijah Moore, but, we talked about the inefficiencies that he has. Again, Kincaid, having him would have been a huge difference maker. Palmer would have been great to have for a full game, but going forward, I think it's just something where they've gone a little too far to one direction when it comes to the run game. They live and die by that. I love having Hawes in the game. I think he's an absolute unit when it comes to that. But when he's in the game, hey, defensively, it's a tendency tell that they're going to run the ball 80% of the time. Probably he's in the game. That's not an actual stat, but that's just my eyes telling me something like that. It's Ray Davis. He hasn't really picked it up in the run game as well. I mean, a few nice plays last night, but overall, I think it's kind of like management and coaching staff are hoping, okay, we hope a few guys are going to take that next jump. They didn't really do that. I know they were kind of banking on that a little bit with Keon, and they go invest in the wide receiver group. But overall, it was tough. And then it reflects in the defensive line. Atlanta last night was saying, Ulbrich and the staff were saying, we don't trust you at all to beat us one-on-one, man-to-man coverage. We're going to send the house to you, and we're going to get home before you can make a play. And that's exactly what happened. That was a recipe for success. We saw Baltimore do that last year when they dominated us in a blowout and we had bodies go down. It worked. I'd actually compare last night's game, though, very similar to the Houston game of last year. A team that I think Atlanta is going to be decent this year. It's not like they're a horrible team. Houston last year, we struggled to get guys open. I think Allen went 9 of 30, something like that. And we were all saying everybody eats is false. It's a fallacy. It doesn't work. They go out and get Amari Cooper. Things turned around a little bit. So that right there, I still have faith because I've seen it in the past before where they've turned it around. But again, AJ brought it up. It's never a guarantee that they can do this. I think there's more deficiencies this year than any Bills team that we've had in the last 5 years by far. I think defensively it gets a little sketchy. I'd like to see Jordan Hancock get his fair rep at safety. He's a guy who made a nice special teams play last night, had a great preseason, great tackler, physical guy for the size that he's at. But no doubt about it, I think they got to make a move on each side of the ball. I think that's kind of an unrealistic thing just in how the NFL goes with GMs now. But I think if they're serious about it this year, they got to make a move on both sides of the ball. And if there's ever a year to have that one seed, it's this one. And we talked about it earlier. If they don't get it, at bare minimum, it's a disappointment. It's a disappointment. And right now you're battling for the division.
And part of it is to do right by this quarterback, right? Like, and AJ, I was going to jump to you over here too, because with the Allen conversation of it all too, like you could tell how much he was pressing last night. And we talked about on this show a couple times, like the impatience started showing up and everything else. But jump in with what you were going to say there, and then
and I agree with both Mike and Carson that I think Palmer and Kincaid helped last night. But let's not forget that 2 weeks ago against the New England Patriots, they had Kincaid and Palmer in the lineup and scored 20 points. They also could not really pass the ball against New Orleans. They also really couldn't pass the ball against Miami. Now, they were running the ball better in those games, so offensively they were scoring at a higher rate, but we're acting like Dalton Kincaid and Joshua Palmer are the difference. They're really not. The run game is the reason why they have not looked good offensively the last 2 weeks. the turnovers as well, and obviously the penalties. But I think that's like why it concerns me offensively. And why it's hard, because it's hard to reason, because Mike made a good point yesterday on the post-game show, because like they do kind of have the same kind of collection of guys and, the kind of the same offensive line. So like, that's where it's hard. Now, again, my response to that would be, well, it's been a year on film. The Bills switched philosophies. Teams were catching up to that. And Amari Cooper, I think, really helped them, open things up for that offense. And he was still, a known player where I think teams did have to game plan for him, especially the way he started in Buffalo in his first couple of games. So I think now that the teams know what the Bills are doing, I think it's easier. But, like we've all said, they blitzed the heck out of the Bills last night. No one could get open. Josh was antsy. The offensive line, just couldn't. I mean, if Josh Allen's first read was taken away, there was really nowhere for him to go. And it's just, that's the biggest fear for me is we can talk about the injuries, but if you look at this year in the totality of the 6 games, there has not been enough players on the outside or at the tight end position that have consistently stepped up for Josh Allen throughout the season, besides the fourth quarter in Baltimore. And that's the only exception. So that's my concern with that. And then defensively, again, I think they, I harped on that's why I don't listen to press conferences, because I just get myself worked up, because I listen to them so much that I hear the same thing over and over again. So then it just really irritates me, but I know that's what happens and that's how it goes. So that was a little bit overreaction on my part. I should have probably started my statement like that. So it probably, I think I made myself look bad there. But I think defensively, I've called it since the jump. I tweeted it on August 15th, whatever, that the safety position and how they handled it was abysmal. They don't, even go after like an Xavier Watts. I really wanted a Malachi Starks. You extend Taylor Rapp. You hope that Cole Bishop makes this Terrell Bernard leap that everyone was, look at Terrell Bernard made the leap, so Cole Bishop's going to make the leap. And that was, again, another false correlation that people had and they thought would happen, and clearly it's not. So I think the way they handle the safety room, that's a Brandon Beane thing. I mean, DeMar Hamlin's your backup, and now he's on IR, so he's not even going to be out there. You draft a 5th-round nickel corner that is a versatile player. He's going to learn all these positions in training camp. We haven't even seen him on the field. So the safety position, linebacker Mike's really touched on. With I don't think they'll have the guts to bench Bernard and Milano. I think they'll start, and I don't think they're going to. But we'll see. Maybe they prove me wrong. But that's really all I got. I just wanted to clean up the press conference talk. That was just me getting annoyed, and just talk about the receivers, and that although Palmer and Kincaid were out yesterday, they scored 20 last week, or 17, 20.
So 20. I'm going to rebut you, man. I'm going to rebut you. Here's the thing. Josh Palmer might not have the most impressive stats. Dalton Kincaid might not have the most impressive stats. If you count last night, and I'm counting last night where like Kincaid didn't play a snap because he was out, was out by middle of the second quarter. The two of those players account for over 37% of Josh Allen's passing yards this year. And then if you factor in that Keon went off in that fourth quarter and Josh Allen threw for like 250 yards in that fourth quarter, outside of the fourth quarter against Baltimore, you count the other 23 quarters of football that they've played this year, and those two players are about 50% of Josh Allen's throwing yardage this year. It's like 45% plus. So we can all say that those two don't make a difference.
I did. I said that. I said it did matter, but it doesn't override the issue that there's a passing. They have
Josh Palmer completely changed that game by being out. And the reason being, Josh Palmer is in the intermediate part of the field. And as he showed earlier in the game, he can get the occasional deep ball. Once he was out of the game, the Bills didn't have one player on the entire offense that had the ability to extend the field, which is why the Falcons were able to blitz relentlessly, which then put a lot of pressure on the Bills' offensive line that they're not accustomed to seeing. And then as a result of that, Josh Allen gets pressured more, is put into more quick decisions, and that's ultimately like the issue I have here. You know what the answer is? And I talked about it on the show last night. This is the part that aggravates me about the Bills. And it aggravates me a little bit about Josh Allen too. And like, I know they're trying to protect him and they don't want him getting hurt. Do you remember when the Bills used to get blitzed a lot early in Josh Allen's career? Teams used to do the jailbreak blitzes against him all the time when he was a rookie. And what did the Bills do as a result? They let Josh Allen run. That's the answer to it. If you want teams to not do it, you run the quarterback, because once you get past the first level, there's nobody there to stop you. The Bills had simple answers that they refuse to use because they're protecting their quarterback. And that's what bothers me, because Josh Allen, as a rookie, ran for 700 plus yards and averaged 7.1 yards per carry. Why? Because that's what their answer. When Josh Allen didn't know how to complete 55% of his passes, when Josh Allen couldn't hit a guy 20 yards in front of him if his life depended on him as a rookie, he ran the ball. Like, that should have been the adjustment in the game. And I do wonder if he did get hurt, because the one play he went down and he looked very awkward with his non-throwing hand. And I wonder if that had an impact on him, because he made some questionable decisions in this game, and he also looked flustered. And I guess this is my problem with the situation. You knew that you weren't going to have Dalton Kincaid. So obviously you're going to be impacted from that point of view. And then when you lose Palmer, the reason why that's so big is teams aren't afraid of Knox. They're not afraid of Coleman. Elijah Moore can't do anything. So then basically that lets Atlanta focus on Shakir, and basically they shut down the passing game in that moment. So the Bills really, what they had to do, because they didn't have the guys in the passing game to exploit Atlanta's secondary, they needed to run the ball very effectively. But because they fell behind 21-7 early, they're in this whole mode like, we can't run it, we can't burn clock, we have to keep it in the air. And James Cook averaged 5.1 yards per carry. But that on 3rd and 1, you're pulling him out of the game and doing jet sweeps to Elijah Moore. And while a play like that, honestly, I don't even hate those play calls. It's more so that, like, for some reason, the Bills can't execute the simplest fucking shit, which is like people say that's too cute. In reality, it's not really that cute. Like, you see that crap all the time in college, and you see MAC schools execute it at like a high level. Like, I would, like, if Ohio University ran a jet sweep on 3rd and 1 against Ohio State, I would say they have a chance to convert it. Like, because the whole thought process is everybody's going up the middle. You get the ends to converge, and then you got a whole opening on the outside. And so, like, it's actually not stupid. But my problem with it is, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's Josh Allen handing off the ball. I don't know if it's giving the ball to guys like Elijah Moore and Dawson Knox that aren't, like, used to getting the ball a lot in those scenarios. They execute. The execution is horrible. When they hit Isaiah McKenzie, they were flawless with a lot of this.
Fun. Real quick, last night, 100% on Elijah Moore. Number one thing, Pee-wee football. This is such a basic thing. If you're going to the right, left hand up, right hand down. If you're going to the left, right hand up, left hand down. What does Elijah Moore do? Tries to grab it like it's a cat. That right there causes the fumble. Ridiculous. It can't happen. It cannot happen.
It's so stupid. And the thing I get mad about in that scenario is when you are running for 5.1 yards per carry. Yes, you know that Atlanta's probably going to crowd the line of scrimmage, but you've been running on 8-man boxes for 5 yards for like the entire second half. Run it. Like, if you don't get it, you can go for it again. Instead, you fumble and you lose 3 yards and you're forced to punt. Also, you have a 6'4", 6'5" quarterback. QBs take the goddamn thing. Like,
is McDermott actually sticking to his, let's get rid of the tush push mantra now? Is he actually?
I think McDermott
going through with that in his play calling.
It's political. He's got to get rid of it.
Maybe that has something to do with it.
He doesn't like
I also
play.
think that they don't. They've said they think that the play could lead to injuries, and I think they play it safe with Josh. Everything this year has been safe with Josh, and I'll say this. I think they need to be a little less safe this year, because last year, if we're going to be honest with ourselves, what happened? Amari Cooper didn't really change the Bills' offense, but just having him there opened things up just enough for them to go back to what they wanted to do. They did not have a great collection of receivers. They had the same offensive line. They had the same quarterback, and they had the same running back. but yet they had 8 games in a row of 30-plus points. What I think is frustrating me is the reason they were able to have that success last year is because they were hitting on things at such an efficient rate. They were executing football almost flawlessly. Josh Allen was doing what was expected on him of every play. The running back, the blocking was doing what they expected on every play. Cook was making things happen explosively. And then they had enough scattered in receiving wise to just get by. You look at it on paper, like it is almost the same receiving core. One of a couple things is happening. Teams are not afraid of them, so they have adjusted to the Bills. So maybe last year, midseason, teams are like, are the Bills really going to hand the ball off to James Cook 20 times? Are they really going to try to run the ball for 250 against us? Like, there's no way they're actually going to do that. They have Josh Allen. They're gonna try to throw. And now I think it's ingrained in teams like, no, they really are going to run it on us like 25 times. So now teams are coming in to stop that, which means the receivers have to make up for it. So the Bills have to adjust to how teams have adjusted to playing them. And that is why I'm saying you're going to need Josh Allen to run the ball. And I think the answer to the Bills offense going off, is them to treat him more like Cam Newton back when he was on the Panthers. And that comes with a lot of risk because you could put yourself in a position to get hurt. You could something bad could happen. I'm not saying go that extreme. Like, I don't want him to run like 10 times a game. But they have not – think about the Josh Allen runs this year. Most of them have been improvising and scrambles. And I know he's always been good at that. How many design runs can you picture in your head right now that Josh Allen has had success on? Almost all of the design runs they've had this year have been failures. And this is kind of what I was going back with even his sacks. He's been sacked 12 times this year. His rushing numbers on paper look similar to what they have been in recent years. But if you watch him play, when they are doing design runs, they're not doing many, and he's not getting much yardage. And if you go through every game and you look at his actual rushing stats, there's normally one run that distorts the entire numbers. Like, he'll run for 40 yards and he'll have a 25-yard run, or he'll run for 30 yards and he'll have an 18-yard run. And then the other 5 carries will have like 10 yards. He's not consistently getting yardage. And maybe that's the same every other year, and I'm just overanalyzing it. But
I think you're right. I think you're right on that.
Well, and defenses are defending. Go ahead.
Yeah,
AJ.
go ahead, Jake. No, you got it. Go ahead.
Defenses are defending him differently in the pocket too. So the scramble, there's not as many of the scramble opportunity. Like they mentioned it last night on the broadcast, AJ. Like they're caging him up. Like they're not giving him the same scramble lanes to the outside. Was that what you were going to say?
Well, yeah, I was going to say like
that's what's frustrating him because that's what. Let's be real. This is why I said it's not just a receiver problem. It's also a scheme and a Josh Allen problem, because the scheme-wise is teams have figured out what the Bills are doing, and they have found ways to contain them. That's a scheme-related thing. So, like, Joe Brady has to figure out, how do I now adjust to that and find an answer to what teams are doing in that scenario? But the reason why this is a Josh Allen problem is now that teams have found a way to cage him in, a massive part of Josh Allen's game is doing things off script. But if teams find a way to cage him in, and we don't have the receivers that have the ability to do things in the other parts of the field, that means Josh is going to struggle because he doesn't have the openings to improvise and run for big gains, make explosives, which basically means the current moment, teams have found a way to effectively neuter our quarterback. So that's a concern, because this is where, and I'm not saying this is a good thing, but a lot of pocket passers who are all about timing, about getting the ball out in precision passing, their strengths are you can get them average receivers, but they know 1, 2, 3, boom, get it there, get on the mark.
And Josh was doing that.
That's never
he was doing it for 3 weeks, though.
He was doing it. He's done it for 3 weeks, and Josh Allen has shown it for pockets of time during his career. He has never
He can't keep it
consistently
up.
done it for a course of a season. So when you ask, why does the Bills offense now have some of that up and down? We talked about it last night. I am never going to say Josh Allen is bad. Like, Josh Allen is the only reason the Bills are an elite football team. He's the MVP. He's an all-time generational type talent. But some of the weaknesses in his game have been putting the ball where it needs to be on time with certain players consistently over periods of time. And sometimes it's been diagnosing things. Now, he's gotten way better, and he's probably one of the top 5, top 10 in the league at doing that stuff now. But when you're playing a team that is not afraid of your receivers and they're going to blitz you relentlessly, know what you need there? You either need a receiver to get open quickly, or you're going to need your timing to be so high level that your play is just better than their coverage. And I don't trust the Bills passing game can get out of situations by being that type of offense.
Yep.
So that's why I'm concerned. Like, we talked about it yesterday. Elijah Moore, 60-plus catches last year in Cleveland. Curtis Samuel, around 60 catches a year when you talk about Carolina and in Washington. Josh Palmer had a 60-plus catch season. These are guys that nobody would say they're great, but they're all guys that have had moments in the NFL where people were like, they're good players. The fact that these guys now in Buffalo look like bums tells you one thing. It means either the offensive coordinator is not scheming them and using them in a way that is to their strengths, or number 2, their strengths don't play to what the quarterback's strengths are, and that they don't vibe together. I think for the longest time, and I'll be done with this point in a second. We saw Elijah, I'm getting his name wrong now, but Isaiah McKenzie be this gadget guy for all these years in Buffalo. And then you saw them try to replace it with Deontay Hardy. Then they brought in Curtis Samuel. Now they're bringing in Elijah Moore. I think the Bills like guys like Moore and Curtis Samuel as a way of extending their run game and turning the short pass game into a horizontal way where we get the guy for an easy 2-yard completion. He gets stuff after the catch, and then we keep moving the ball. So we're always in a 2nd and 3. We're in a 3rd and 1. And that's what they like to do. The problem is, I think they're getting a little impatient right now. They're dealing with some injuries. And now that they just don't know how to implement these guys properly. Yep. And I think it's concerning because
I think it's exposed the warts of what Joe Brady, what his limitations are, I think, as much as anything else too.
Could it also be an issue? I'll put it like this. I'm not saying they're as bad on screens anymore, but we always talk about the Bills struggle to run screens. Well, there's always part of the reason why the Bills always struggle to run screens was because teams were never blitzing Josh Allen. So the defenses have guys, enough men to basically take on a screen. Josh Allen, if we're being real, one of Josh Allen's weaknesses throughout his career at times has been some of his short yardage passing, because short yardage is all about putting the ball where it needs to be on time. So the block, because the difference between being a 10-yard pass on a short bubble screen or being broken up for nothing is basically the difference between having the ball in stride or reaching down low to get it, reaching up high to get it, going to your side. And you'll routinely see with Josh a lot of the times.
Carson, I don't know. I think he could have done better than Keon last night. Do you see that? You see that
he's routinely off on a lot of these though. That's the thing.
He was on there.
A lot of his ball placement is off on some of these things. And I'm not turning this into a Kill Josh Allen show.
I was going to say, his deep passing is not good. Now you're ripping his shirt. You're a little overthinking Josh.
But we could get into a lot.
The reason I am saying this stuff is when you don't have the talent, this is the stuff he needs to be perfect on. And right now, that's what he's not perfect at. So, how do you change it?
Tom Brady wasn't perfect.
So
that's what I'm trying to say. So there is critique that needs to be had because his weaknesses are the things he needs to be stronger on if they want to climb out of these type of things. They'll be fine. They'll probably score 30 points against Carolina, and we'll laugh about this. But in this current moment, there's things that need to be worked on throughout the offense.
And so let's wrap with that. Parthy, AJ, Carson, what is the one thing you would change if you had a magic wand? What's the one thing you would change?
Well, I would, if I had a choice of linebackers to bench, given the second half stats with Bernard being out, I'd keep Milano for the same reason that we have Poyer on the safeties. Communication. I trust Milano's communication to be a benefit, and I'd keep Bernard as much as I believe, just extended him on the bench for the time being, as long as Shaq Thompson's playing well. Other thing I'd change is my receivers going forward, all being healthy, would be Palmer, Samuel, Shakir, and I'd have Kincaid on tight end, and I'd bench Keon Coleman, except possibly I try to figure out a specialist scenario for him, like maybe within the red zone, within where coverage gets tight. Maybe contested catches can benefit Josh in that area. And yeah, let's just bench anybody that's not worth anything. Even if the veterans we brought in, as practice squad guys are doing better than who we have out there now, let's just put the best guys on the field, especially Deion Walker and Shaq Thompson and other guys of that nature. Tell Joe Brady to rip out the jet sweeps for the time being until we can get the handoffs right. But pretty much that.
AJ, what would be your thing to change in this moment? Your magic wand.
I think my one change would be, and it's kind of simple, you might be surprised, but I think it would just be getting the running backs more involved in the passing game. I think it's been an utter disappointment, and whether that's, I think it's ultimately falls on Joe Brady, because I mean, Patrick Mahomes has an easy button. He always seems to have a pass catching running back, right? When he's there with Andy Reid. So I want to see more with that. James Cook's had one target in the last 2 weeks. You remember that game where Allen adjusted the, adjusted the play before the, snap, and Cook ripped one off for a big gain. That was huge in that game. So I want to see them utilize James Cook more as a pass catcher. Get back. I want to see a little bit more short passing. And the thing that's hard is I just don't know if they have, because now teams are just gonna swarm them. The corners are just gonna swarm them. So it's gonna be tough. But my one wish would be get the running backs more involved in the passing game. And I think Ray Davis had a nice play last night, but I want to see more of it. And I want to see James Cook more involved as a pass catcher.
AJ, I think that's a great point. You look at how the Falcons used Bijan last night. I think he had 8 catches or something ridiculous like that. It was to the point where wherever he was going, he was getting the football. So I think that's a really good point. I think they got to get back to that. But I don't know if this is a time where you necessarily change a whole lot, to be honest with you. I think you're in a spot where you're really, really banged up. The bye comes at a good time, per se, for the injury department. I think this is a time where you get healthy. You look back at the film. I think the Bills got to get back to what they do best. And I know it's cliche, and we've brought up the argument of, well, maybe running the football is going to get taken away come playoff time and the teams that know how to beat you well. But I think this team's got to do a way better job staying ahead of the sticks right now, because last night, 3rd down and long happened way too much. They're putting themselves in bad positions for a variety of reasons. But right now, they got to get back to their game and get back to disciplined football. The penalties on both sides of the ball have been just ridiculous lately. It's been Rex Ryan show out there. And discipline also when it comes down to making decisions. I think they've been a little impatient at times. Matter of fact, I know it's been a definite that they've been impatient these past few weeks offensively. It's just taking what's given. I think they got to implement a little bit more of a play action game. I know they've tried that, but I'd like to see Josh get in space a little bit more. It's just, I think it's a culmination of things, but this is not the time to throw everything out the window. At the end of the day, you had a recipe for success where you went 24-5 or whatever since Joe Brady took over, and then you've lost 2 in a row since then. I don't think you throw that all out the window. I think there's a lot of good still here. Personnel-wise, you might want to make a trade or two. We'll see what happens there. But with the group they got right now, I think they just have to get back to their type of football, running the football effectively, which we saw them do. I thought they gave up on that. They got a little antsy, I think, trying to get all those points back early in the first half. They got back to it in the second half. But back to a balanced football team. At times they've gone way too run heavy. At times they've gotten a little impatient. Fine, just settle down. You're fine. 4-2, ton of season left. At the end of the day, I think the Bills still got a good chance at the AFC East, but I'm going to be very concerned if we lose to the Panthers. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm with Carson a lot. I don't think you change too much up. I actually like what Partham said about benching Keon Coleman. If Gabe Davis is back and Keon Coleman still continues to struggle, I think you at least explore reducing his snap count and seeing if other players step up and can do more. I know that's going to sound crazy, but let's not forget Keon Coleman's injury and reduced snaps last year coincided with their streak of having 8 consecutive games scoring 30 points. So literally they had their best stretch of the season last year when Keon Coleman wasn't playing for half of it. And when he did come back was limited in it. So not to say that that's an indictment on Keon Coleman and he's the only issue with this offense, but right now he's basically an ineffective, useless number one receiver that has no role being on the field outside of blocking. So not trying to say it's a wasted pick or that he's awful, but definitely not helping the team at all right now in almost any facet. And then getting benched for series because he's not doing things on the field. I think it's an embarrassment what's going on with him as a player at this point in time. And then the one thing he is supposed to be great at, contested catches, he's not even doing great in that. He's supposed to be good at getting yards after catch. He's near the bottom of the league in that. So
backwards.
Just a very disappointing player right now. And what I'd say is this, like, hopefully Josh Palmer's not out long-term. I know he's week to week, but we are 2 weeks away from the next game. So hopefully that gives him some time to maybe see the field. If not, hopefully he's back by the KC game or shortly after that. And I don't know the extent of the Gabe Davis injury. I know we said before the season that like we thought he'd be ready to go for the start of the season. The fact that he's still not officially on the practice squad is a little bit concerning. But if Gabe Davis, I'll just say this: if Gabe Davis is 100%, I know this would have sounded like a parody thing to say before the year. There's no way he's not better than half these receivers on the Bills roster right now. And what he brings to the table is literally the one thing the Bills need, and that's intermediate target that can make some plays and that Josh Allen has some trust in. So I don't care. People make fun of him like he drops the ball, he catches with his chest or all this other crap. Like, the Bills need somebody right now. And they don't have the salary cap to get a safety, a corner, defensive lineman, and a receiver. So they're going to have to basically just prioritize one of those positions, get somebody, and then hope that Gabe Davis maybe can come in and help them out. As far as the run game, Carson, like I like your ideas, like what you were saying about the run game, you and AJ, about passing the ball to running backs more. Maybe this is what I'd say. Their struggles are when they get behind the chains. Why do they get behind the chains? Normally when they do stupid things like commit penalties or they pass the ball and it leads to sacks and other things. You know what normally doesn't get them behind the chains? Running the ball for 4 to 5 yards on first down. I hate to say it. The Bills right now are a running team with Josh Allen acting as a game manager at quarterback. It's hideous to say. It's horrible to watch, but it is what it is. And until the Bills can show other opposing defenses that they have the ability to exploit teams 15, 20 yards downfield with maybe Gabe, maybe Palmer, that's going to be what they need to do to win games. So It is what it is.
Get Josh involved in the run game a little bit more too.
Yep, that too. And I think my thinking, and you touched on it a little bit earlier, Bunt, is that they're not going to be able to fill all the holes with the guys from outside this roster. So change it up internally, give other guys opportunities, create more competition in the room, create the urgency in the room that, hey, this shit's not going to fly. We have a higher standard of play than this. So we're going to give other guys opportunities, whether that be young guys, whether that be Poyer and Davis, old guys coming back in. I don't care. Make it a mix, make it a competition. Raise the anxiety in the room, raise the temperature in the room. I think that you have to, if you can't bring in outside competition, up the internal competition and let people know where the standard of play is. But all right, guys, we paid the bills. Shout out to our sponsor, Picasso's Pizza. Thank you for Mike Bunt, Mike Partham, AJ Sobolski, and Carson Hayek. This is Jake Micah. We'll be back next week to talk. We'll see what happens over this next week, team-wise, personnel-wise, and then preview a game in Carolina. And which should surely it'll just be a normal good football game. Yeah, the Rico Dowdle game. So talk soon. And as always, go Bills.